Penguin Random House Audio presents A Most Clever Girl, a novel of an American spy, by Stephanie Marie Thornton. Read for you by Tavia Gilbert. To my grandparents, Carolyn Chrysler, Marge Heinz, and Dawn and Billy Paulson. Was Elizabeth Bentley telling what really happened? Now, 40 years later, one issue still resonates. Did Elizabeth Bentley tell the truth? Hayden Peake, Out of Bondage, afterward. 1. November 23rd, 1963, 12:57 p.m. The gun in Catherine's Poochie handbag bumped reassuringly against her hip as she double-checked the address of the Connecticut apartment building. The scrawled numbers refused to snap into focus until she blinked a few times. Her eyes were still raw from yesterday's news of President Kennedy's assassination, from seeing photos of a tear-stained Jackie Kennedy, whom Catherine sometimes glimpsed while giving tours of the White House, wearing that blood-spattered pink suit, while Lyndon Johnson took the oath of office aboard Air Force One. Yesterday had been the final straw. 1 week ago, Catherine's entire world had fallen apart. 1 day ago, the country. But today, armed with a crumpled letter and the Smith & Wesson revolver her father had carried when he was shot down at the Battle of Saipan, Catherine was going to right some very old wrongs. 2 bullets, she thought to herself. 1 for her, and 1 for me. The building hunched in front of her was nondescript, shabby and run down. Even the wood of the stairs underfoot felt rotten. Catherine, Cat to everyone outside of her mother, who had called her Kathy, had probably watched too much James Bond in Dr. No, but she'd expected a former spy to have a more impressive abode than this 2-story mud-brown building with sagging gutters and peeling paint. Probably fallen on hard times, she thought to herself, as she knocked on the door of number 201, wishing she could break it down instead. She's damned lucky she's not in jail. Cat waited, then gave a second sharp rap with the heel of her fist. She was about to start peering inside windows when a squat woman with snuff-brown hair cracked the door wide enough to reveal a rusted chain lock. She looked more run-down than the building itself, save for her painted red lips. Not just any red. Vicious, violent, poisonous red. "Hello. My name is Catherine Gray." Cat smoothed the flip of her Jackie-esque bob, every rebellious blonde strand lacquered into place with half a can of Aquanet. Given the way the blood was pounding in her ears, she was impressed that her hands didn't shake. "I'm here to see Elizabeth Bentley." The door slammed in her face. Cat raised her fist again, this time ready to break the door down, but stopped at the unexpected rattle of chain. The door reopened, wider this time. The dumpy woman's gaze swept the empty street, making Catherine wonder what, or who, she was looking for. "I'm Elizabeth Bentley." Her voice came out slightly nasal, with that East Coast finishing school polish Catherine had grown accustomed to hearing after 3.5 years at Trinity Washington University. Elizabeth Bentley's face was the sort no one would notice in a crowd. The perfect face for a spy. The image was only marred by a small mole below her left eye, and a scar that streaked beneath her lower lip. This was the face of the woman who had destroyed Cat's life. It's now or never. In one swift movement, Cat aimed the Smith & Wesson revolver straight between Elizabeth's eyes. The gun made a satisfying click as she cocked the trigger. "You ruined my life, you communist bitch, and now you're going to pay for it." She'd thought she'd be able to just pull the trigger, to end all this and escape the lethal undertow of pain. But when the moment came, Kat hesitated. Can I really end someone else's life? Am I capable of that? To Elizabeth's credit, she merely blinked. Was she really so accustomed to staring down the muzzle of a gun? Well, Catherine Gray, unfortunately, I ruined a lot of people's lives. Why don't you come in and we can discuss, like civilized people, what I did that was so heinous that you want to kill me? Whatever Kat had been expecting, while she rehearsed this scene in her head on the train ride up from Washington, D.C., a civilized chat was decidedly not it. Except Elizabeth was already turning around. The open door, an invitation to follow her. Kat worried that perhaps Elizabeth was going for her own weapon, but the former spy merely looked back at her. Are you coming? Or are you really going to shoot me? Kat could pull the trigger. At such close quarters, she could hardly miss, despite the sudden tremor in her hands, and exact a quick and easy revenge. Except it was difficult to think, with her heart beating in her ears and the foundations of her plan crumbling beneath her very feet. It might be easier to follow Elizabeth Bentley inside. Maybe inform this criminal exactly why she was here, and see if Elizabeth Bentley would confess to crimes that had led a 21-year-old college student to her doorstep, with murder on her mind. Then Kat could shoot her, and be done with all of this. Right? Gun in hand, Kat stepped over the threshold. She'd half expected encoding machines or telegraphs inside. Found instead merely a plain apartment decorated in every shade of brown. A clock ticked somewhere, and the lone decoration on any of the oak-paneled walls was a tacky wooden crucifix with a resin Christ nailed to the cross. A stack of leather-bound books tottered on a battered end table, and a long-haired ginger cat stretched out lazily on a mushroom-brown sofa as if he owned the place. The thing opened one eye, then howled piteously before rolling onto his back. Hush, George Washington, Elizabeth chided him. Catherine here has a gun, and you don't want to upset her with your caterwauling. She turned to Kat, arms open at her sides, as if giving her one final opportunity to take the easy way out. Talk or shoot. When Kat didn't move, Elizabeth gave a tiny nod. It's almost 1 o'clock, but I'll put on a fresh pot of Folgers. Or I have gin, if that's your preference. Pick your poison, as it were. No coffee. No gin. I don't want anything from you. Certainly not a glass laced with poison, which Kat wouldn't have put past this woman who once took orders from the NKVD. Except a confession. Elizabeth sighed, gestured toward the formica table inside the thimble-sized kitchen. Do you mind if we sit? Standing is hell on my knees these days. The last thing Kat wanted to do was to sit across from this woman in some cozy tete-a-tete. But she heard her dead mother's voice inside her head. Manners, Kathy. And respect your elders. Except she didn't owe Elizabeth Bentley one iota of respect. She gestured with the gun toward the kitchen. Let's get this over with. And then I'll shoot you. Elizabeth settled into a floral, vinyl-upholstered chair, brown, of course, and tugged on the garish, suntan-hued pantyhose she wore, under her brown rayon dress that was better suited to World War II fabric rations. The woman was plain as mud, not even a stitch of jewelry, save for a golden ring studded with a ruby on her left hand. Quite the juxtaposition to Kat, who wore a black button-up jumper dress on the cutting edge of fashion, the only black dress in her closet, out of mourning for President Kennedy, her one splash of color, a scarlet ascot at her throat. Elizabeth sat, folded her hands before her. Why don't we start with you telling me exactly what I did to ruin your life?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?